Beauty. We're heading out. Can you come to me? Rororo looked at Zaryusu and Chisuryu, and then pulled its head back in. That was followed by a burbling, and the sound of something heavy on the move. Then, Anija, I'd like to ask you something. How many people do you plan to evacuate? Depending on the circumstances, I may need to use that number as a negotiation tool. Chisuryu only hesitated for a moment before answering. 12 warriors, 20 hunters, 3 priests, 70 males, 100 females, and some of the children. I see. I get it. Zaryusu fell silent after seeing Chisuryu's tired smile. Then, the sound of water splashing echoed through the oppressive atmosphere. The two of them looked to the sound's source, and they smiled nostalgically. Mew, it's grown up pretty well. I was quite shocked when I entered its hut. Same here, Anija. I didn't think it'd get so big. After all, it was pretty small when I found it. I find that hard to believe. After all, it was already quite big by the time you brought it back to the village. Just as the two of them reminisced over the way Rororo looked when it was young, 4 serpentine heads popped out of the water near the hut. They approached Zaryusu and Chisuryu. Just then, the serpent head suddenly reared up, revealing a massive form hidden within the water. Its 4 reptilian heads were joined to its body by long necks, and said body had 4 legs. It was a magical beast, a hydra. That was the name of Rororo's species. It was no simple snake, given the fact that it made chewing noises when Zaryusu had tossed it fish. Rororo was 5 meters long, but it was a nimble navigator, and soon made its way to Zaryusu's side. Like a monkey climbing a tree, Zaryusu gracefully clambered onto Rororo's body. You must come back safely. Also, don't worry too much about things. Getting worked up and shouting, I won't let anyone die today is your style. It seems I've grown up a little now. Chisuryu snorted as he heard this. And so the brat has become a man who can stand on his own. Forget it. In any event, take care of yourself. If you don't return, then we'll know who to attack first. I'll come back safely. Wait for me, Anija. After that, the two of them looked at each other, their eyes brimming with emotion, and then, they parted ways. Part 3. There were many rooms on the 9th floor of the great underground tomb of Nazarick. The private quarters of the guild members, and the NPCs notwithstanding, there was also a large bath, a dining room, a beauty salon, a clothing shop, a convenience store, a skincare center, a manicure parlor, and many other such things. A stunning variety of facilities were available here, encompassing just about every form of service or good imaginable. These facilities were largely meaningless in the game. They had most likely been created because their creators were sticklers for detail and wanted the great underground tomb of Nazarick to fit the image of an archaeology. Alternatively, it might have been a psychological response to the miserable living conditions they faced in the real world. And then, there was the interior of one of these rooms. It was run by the sous-chef of the great underground tomb of Nazarick. While he normally showed his skills in the dining room, on certain times and dates, he would come to this place to prepare food for all to enjoy. This room was themed to resemble a small cocktail bar with few regular patrons, and the interior was gently lit with dim lamps. It contained a liquor cabinet, a counter, and 8 chairs before it. Though the room was simply furnished, the sous-chef thought of it as a place where people could quietly drink in peace. This place which he had been granted was like his personal fortress, and it filled him with satisfaction. However, a few minutes after receiving this first-time customer, he realized that the atmosphere was directly related to the nature of its clientele. Diamond suit, glug glug glug, few judging by the sound. The customer in question had just finished a drink in one gulp. As he cleaned a wineglass, the sous-chef idly thought, if you want to drink like that, there's better places for you to be. And indeed, there was a social bar and a club on the 9th floor, so there was no need for her to come here and drink like this. With a thump, the glass, probably a shot glass, judging by the size, slammed down on the counter. The sous-chef struggled against the anger which threatened to twist his face. Give me another. Sous-chef obliged, filling the glass once more. After pouring distilled vodka into it, he added some number 1 blue food coloring. Then, he gently mixed it before handing it over. This drink is called Maiden's Tears. He had made the name up on the spot as the girl before him gave him a doubtful look. Apparently, she had never seen a drink being mixed before, because her expression immediately turned to one of gratitude. Oh, so the spreading blue color represents tears, then? Yes, that's right. He spoke that lie without any hesitation whatsoever. She raised the glass and downed it in one gulp, like she was polishing off a coffee milk after a hot bath. Then, like before, she slammed the glass down on the counter with all her might. I think it's getting to me. Well, you have been drinking it too quickly. How about going back to rest for tonight? No, I don't want to. I see. Sous Chef picked up his glass and began polishing it again. His irritation built as the girl stared at him. If you want to say it, then just come out and say it. That's why women are so troublesome. My clients should be elegant gentlemen, not annoying women. Can I ban women from this place? I guess not. That would disrespect the supreme beings. Still, that was a mistake on my part. This woman had been invited here by nobody other than himself. When he had met her on the 9th floor, he had seen her from behind and worried that she was depressed. Thus he had made conversation with her, something which he now regretted. Still, since he had invited her here as a guest, then he ought to treat her as a bar's owner would. I need to be hospitable, even if I am serving her drinks I've slapped together out of whatever's handy. After preparing himself, he asked a question. Is something wrong, Shaltir-sama? In that moment, the girl, Shaltir, opened her mouth. It would seem she had been waiting for that question for a long time. It would also seem that his guess had been off the mark. Sorry, I don't want to talk about it. Are you kidding me? And then his face wrinkled in a frown. However, Shaltir could not interpret the facial expressions of Myconids, and so she did not comment on it. Instead, she used her finger to toy with the glass before her. TL note, Myconids are mushroom creatures. Sous Chef is one of them. I think I'm a bit drunk. Really now? As if. Shaltir might have felt that she was drunk, but Sous Chef was utterly convinced that it was not the case. Drunkenness was similar to being poisoned. Thus, it was impossible for someone who was immune to poison to get intoxicated. As one of the undead, Shaltir was immune to poison, so she could not possibly be drunk. The fact was that the people who came here removed the items which made them immune to poison, or they came to enjoy the atmosphere, while knowing that they would not get drunk. Still, Shaltir believed that she was drunk. That was probably true, she was intoxicated by the ambience. Just as Sous Chef was wondering what he should do next, he heard a most wonderful sound. He turned and bowed to its source. Welcome. Hi, Peaky. He had gained that nickname because he looked quite similar to a certain mushroom. The person who had addressed him by that nickname was one of his regular customers, assistant head butler Eclair. He was accompanied by the manservant who was carrying Eclair by his waist. Eclair was deposited onto one of the stools, as was customary. This was because Eclair was only 100 centimeters tall, and had trouble climbing onto the stools by himself. He was baffled by why two of his customers, who were seated side by side, had not greeted each other. Then, he glanced over to Shaltir, and found that her head was lowered, and she seemed to be muttering to herself. He could faintly make out something which sounded like an apology to the Supreme One, Ainsul Gown. With a somewhat exaggerated motion, Eclair signaled for a drink. I'll have that one. Understood. There was only one drink which came to mind when he said that one. That would be a 10-colored cocktail made with 10 different liquors, Nazarick. Not only was the cocktail visually attractive, but its taste was pleasing to the palate. His frequent customers approved mightily of it, and felt that it was worthy of the name Nazarick, but this was not something he would recommend to others. Sous Chef had experimented repeatedly to fine-tune the flavor, but he did not know when it would be complete. With practiced movements, he poured the 10-colored cocktail and placed it before Eclair. This is for you, Mississippi. And then, what followed was a whoosh and a crash. Perhaps Eclair was trying to slide the glass across to her over the counter, but only a manga character, or a very skillful person could do so. A penguin was neither. He picked up the fallen glass and breathed a sigh of relief after he saw that it was undamaged. He wiped up the spilled liquor, and then fixed Eclair with an unhappy look. Could I trouble you not to flail around with your flippers? If you insist on doing so, I will have you carted out in a bucket. My sincerest apologies. Shaltier raised her head. It would seem she had realized Eclair's presence thanks to their two-man act. Era, if it isn't Eclair? It's been a while. Well, it seems I keep running into you whenever you come to the 9th floor. Really? Yes. Still, I didn't expect to find you here. I always thought only Demiurge came here, among the Guardians. I believe once he came here to drink with Cositus. Oh really? Shaltier's eyes went wide as she heard about her colleagues. Still, what happened to make you like this? I just made I made a terrible mistake. So I came here like a dejected guardian to drown my sorrows in drink. A puzzled look came over Eclair's face, and he asked the sous chef with his eyes, "What's with this girl?" However, he did not know either, so all he could do was shake his head in response. However, he still hoped that everyone could be happy here while they drank. With that in mind, Piki suggested something which surprised the two of them. How about trying something to change your moods? A glass of apple juice, perhaps? The two of them froze as they heard this. Made with apples harvested from the 6th floor. Those words seemed to interest them, and they nodded in unison. He was pleased to see their earnest response. Soon, he had 2 cups of ordinary-looking apple juice on the counter. Sous chef glanced to the manservant, wondering if he wanted any as well, but the offer was silently declined as usual. Naturally, he had a straw for Eclair, who was an avian. It tastes delicious. It's pretty good, but it lacks impact. Perhaps it's not sweet enough? That was the feedback the two of them gave after downing their drinks in one shot. Well, it can't be helped. I've had those apples before, and they're not as sweet as the ones stored in Nazarick. Is there an apple tree on the 6th floor? I don't recall one. Apparently, Shaltier had heard of that before, because she answered before he could. Could those be the apples Ain Sama brought back? I heard from Albedo about a plan to replenish our consumables, where we'd grow seeds from the outside in Nazarick to see if they would bear fruit. Piki had heard of that as well. He had also been ordered to use all sorts of food from the outside to make dishes, in order to see if they could boost their eaters' stats. Yes, I heard that too. If it works out, there's going to be an orchard too. However, it just isn't sweet enough. No, it's not undrinkable yet. Perhaps this fruit juice would be perfect if you wanted to cleanse your palate. Still, who's planting them? Aura and Mare are both outside. Are the magical beasts in charge of it? No, that would be the dryad Ain Sama brought back from the outside. Eclair's face seemed to be saying, who? In contrast, Shaltier's seemed to be saying, ah. I see, so this is a case of the right person for the job. Could it be that Ain Sama was thinking about something like this from back then? What's the matter? Has someone new come to Nazarick? Shaltier answered Eclair's question. He had seen the dryad before, but he did not know the details. Thus, he pricked up his ears and listened. The dryad had been brought back after that battle to gauge the Guardians' ability to fight as a group. Apparently, there had been some sort of deal made with the dryad which resulted in the dryad being brought to Nazarick to be an apple farmer. Which means Nazarick is constantly improving and growing, right? The two of them nodded at Eclair's words. He was the sous chef, so he was not quite sure about the details of this matter, and the future plans for the great underground tomb of Nazarick. However, he now understood that the last supreme being who remained here, Ain Zulgaun, was attempting to conserve their strength in this world and planning to grow his power further. I see. That means that in future, Nazarick might have many more newcomers like the Dryad, am I correct? Shaltier puffed up her cheeks in displeasure after hearing Eclair's words. I certainly hope not. How can we let these trash walk freely about the places which the Supreme Beings built? He felt the same way too. He could not help but frown as he thought about the dwellings of the Supreme Beings being stained by outsiders. However, there was one thing which overshadowed these feelings. Still, we have to bear with it, because that is Ain Sama's will. The word of the Supreme Being, Ain's Ulgaun, was absolute. If he said that something white was black, then it would certainly turn black. I don't intend to defy Ain Sama's decision. The other two nodded to the shrieking Shaltir. Then, we will need to be ever more loyal to Ain Sama, as examples for the masses. Of course, I feel that nobody other than you will betray Ain Sama. Exactly. Ah yes, Shaltir, what do you think? Right now, I can guarantee you a lofty position. Eclair began his usual, and never successful, recruitment spiel, but it was drowned out by a bizarre cry. Nua Shaltir grabbed her head as she shrieked before them. Her moaning was filled with pledges of loyalty. What happened? Her tone seems different from usual. In response to Eclair's question, Suchef merely shook his head and shrugged, who knows? Clone. New paste. Few persons can be made to believe that it is not quite an easy thing to invent a method of secret writing which shall baffle investigation. Yet it may be roundly asserted that human ingenuity cannot concoct a cipher which human ingenuity cannot resolve. Edgar Allan Poe. Oh. 184,016 pastes opened. Based on an original idea from sebsavage.net. Sam and Max.